Welcome back to BG5 Live. This is episode 27. I cannot believe it. 27. So some exciting areas to explore. We talked about this a little bit last spring, I think, but Vanessa and I are super excited to be welcoming Banu, who is the OC16 teacher in BG5 Institute. Before we do that, Vanessa, hello. Why don't we give our
Hi.
introduction to BG5 Live, and then we'll
Yes, of
start jumping
course.
in.
Welcome to BG5 Live, the show for BG5 and human design professionals, students, and enthusiasts who would like a deeper understanding of how to apply human design to business so that they can thrive in their own careers and support their clients in doing the same. So we're very excited to be here. We are very excited to have Banu here as well. She has a wealth of knowledge, and I'm excited for this entire series that we're going to be doing on OC16.
I'm very excited too. Very excited. Before we have Banu jump in, how was your summer? We finished in early July, and so I haven't really talked to you too much. Give me a quick overview. How was your summer? What was happening for you?
It was amazing. I turned 50 in July, and my whole family and
Woohoo!
friends
Congrats!
came. Some some friends came down, and we had the most amazing 2 weeks ever. I had an amazing party, and yeah, the whole birthday thing was just awesome. And I sort of took those 2 weeks off. And other than that, I have been super busy behind the scenes, creating new offers specifically around using technology systems in your human design business. That's been really exciting because it blends two of my passions, well, three: human design for business, I guess that's two, and technology and systems. So it's been an awesome summer, and I'm excited to be back and reconvene with everyone. Tell us
You
about yours,
sounded
because I know you've done lots of fun stuff too.
Yeah, your summer sounded really productive. Mine, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. So I was a little tired at the end of my teaching. So I finished certification class. So I had a really nice wind up to everything. And then I just looked at my schedule and I had most of July, all of August, and early September off. And I just traveled. So for me, I had this particular way of traveling. I do really best with solo travel. And so I just find that I flow through these kind of landscapes. I like one of my favorite things to do is land in a place and then I just kind of have these micro explorations and I talk to people. And design wise, I just sink into my body and I just kind of find the way to go and I meet people and they tell me about places and then I go there and I meet someone else and it's just this series of synchronicities that just kind of happen and I'm always amazed that it feels effortless. So I my way I worked through this summer was I had a week away and a week at home and a week away, and so I did these kind of very different things all over the place. So it was really fun.
That sounds
Yeah,
amazing and super aligned, especially with trait 40, trait 12, 2-4 public role. Just sounds very aligned to me.
yeah. Sometimes I'm just there's a part of me that sometimes is like I'm up and out and just watching myself and having these conversations with people. It's kind of fascinating to notice and watch in yourself,
And
you
then
know.
also with the aloneness in there as well. So that's really
Oh,
cool.
yeah. 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 Plus being a hermit. My partner was a little, she's like, "Who are you?" Because I kept going and coming back, and she's like, "I think I remember you." It was she's very understanding, so it was really fun. Before we dive into OC16, I thought we would do a quick overview. So if you are just new to the show, one of the things that I think is a big question mark for new students, like, what is BG5? Like, what is this thing? How is it different from human design? So I thought we'd take a moment to explore this a little bit. And Vanessa, Banu, if you have anything you want to offer, Sarah, of course, you can. Sarah's with us too, by the way. So Sarah is she's one of our regulars. She's one of the home people. All right, so BG5, the career and business application of the human design system. So one of the things I want you to understand is we don't lose the core philosophy. We don't lose the core essence of human design. We just look at it through a very specific lens, which is how are you designed to make a living? How are you designed to run a business? How are you designed to develop your practice? How are you designed to do your particular craft? So we look at it through a very specific lens here in the Institute. So I just wanted to tell you, like, we are mostly focusing our attention on the material world. How are you designed to operate and succeed materially? But again, we do not lose the essence. So don't feel like, like, oh, we're losing something when we study BG5. It's actually the opposite. We retain that essence and look at it through that very specific lens. So when you come into the Institute to study, number one, you go through your own internal process. And if you've studied human design at all, you know that human design is a mutative system. So mutation in the sense of you learn it and you have to begin to grow and adapt. Now, the irony of human design is you're learning about yourself, but most people begin to discover when they're learning this system, they have a lot of shadow patterns, and human design is called not self. And so one of the things that you do in the human design BG5 learning process is you go through a deconditioning, which means you drop a lot of who you are not away, and you start to retain and come into alignment with what we could consider your true self, your authentic self. So BG5, we talk about learning for yourself and also helping others how to make money, while also trying to find your purpose. What are your material gifts? And we have different expressions in different ways. So when you're operating solo, when you're operating in partnership, when you're operating in small teams, when you're operating in large teams. So large teams is where Banu is going to really help us understand. And so part of our work is helping people understand this is the environment that you are most designed to find success in. For instance, for myself, for me, everything is really about solo. I can work in larger groups, but as long as I retain my individuality, I am not someone who's a cog in the machine. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people really thrive in larger groups. And again, Banu is going to help us be talking about that. Some people are really designed to function in partnership. Vanessa is one of those people. So knowing yourself individually, that's an important piece. And also understanding how we work with others. So this is a very people-oriented. So we start with the individual and we kind of build out. Yeah, Vanessa, would you add anything?
I think you covered it beautifully. The only thing
Okay.
I'll add is that I'm designed to work solo, in groups, in partnership, in small groups, and in large groups,
You're
not
one of
just
those
partnership.
unique people. Unique
I've got all
people.
of it in there. I
Yeah.
prefer working in certain ways, but my design lends to all of them.
Yeah. I'm a little envious of you with Vanessa. I'll just go back to her design. If you're watching this on a video, you can see Vanessa has so much going on there, so much going on. Sometimes a little jealous, like, oh, you have that strength and that strength and that strength. I just have one. I'm like a solo 3420 express builder. Last thing we'll talk about, and we're going to turn it over to Banu, is this is one of my favorite parts of studying BG5. We learn more about these kind of group dynamics and partnership in the certification class. So if you are interested, you start off with the foundation classes 1 and 2, and then we move into certification class, which is 3 semesters. So we start off looking at the individual, but then somewhere in semester 2, we start looking at group dynamics and understanding how you are designed to operate with other people, first in partnership and then with bigger groups. One of the things I love about partnership, and Vanessa, I hope you and I get to do a partnership class at some point in the Institute. I think it's going to be awesome. Partnership can be, when we think about it in terms of business, there's so many applications. We think about in terms of we have a team leader and the team underneath. And so those dynamics can be really important. And so if we have an owner of a business, then we have, these different people in the positions, can be really helpful to show the owner or the team leader how they're designed to be in relationship with each of the key people in the organization. We also have business partnerships. So this kind of partnership dynamic plays a really dynamic role in business. And so it has so many applications. So we look at that in semester 2, and then we start looking at small groups and large groups. So, Banu, Sarah, anything you would add before we jump into OC16?
Of course, there's so much I would add because there's so much that we learn and go through the process together. I think what really makes the lens that we take into human design deeper is this the group dynamics. Because then instead of working with individuals, of course, understanding ourselves is key, and maybe understanding the other, the partner, or whoever we're working with. But once we move into group dynamics, the whole energy changes. And traditional approaches to human design or the personal application doesn't study this. And I know there's a lot of information on the internet on what human design is and what the basic knowledge bits and pieces are there. But what happens in group dynamics is something that we learn here because it's advanced information. And whether we like it or not, no matter how much you study your own design, the moment you're in a group or in a partnership, even with that second person, it just shifts. Because you can no longer be just you because you're no longer in your energy. So then understanding how you contribute to that energy, what you receive from that energy, and is it helping you? Is it just derailing you of what you're supposed to do? And to understand that. And plus being able to guide teams as well to work better, to align better, to make use of everybody's gifts is also very important. So I really enjoy those parts of what we study and do together in classes as well.
I love that you brought that up. I remember the first time when I started studying BG5 for the first time I had this realization that I am not designed to work in teams. It was a shocker, and it also made sense. I remember feeling that as if I get in a boat. So this was just a small team meeting, but it was a light bulb moment for me where I felt like I get in a boat and I was just being pulled downstream. And it was one of those meetings where, we were deciding on who does what, and, we were dividing up responsibilities. I'm like, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And then I walked out of the meeting. And I was like, what did I just do? I don't want to do any of that. But I was in the flow of the Penta, the team, and I was like, yeah, like this is great. Until I walked out of the aura field and like, it was like I wanted to smack myself in the head because I was so upset taking on all these responsibilities. So what Banu is talking about is we do kind of get caught up. And if we're not designed to operate in those fields, it can be challenging. So
the awareness is the key piece, I think. So if you're aware of what might happen when you are in such environments, then we can understand it, and we don't let our mind just jump in there and say, me, for example, just like the example you gave, or it could be anything, right? So it gives us an understanding. And when there's awareness and we start understanding things, at the cognitive level, right? We got to start, we're all human. Although we don't lead with the mind, we got to start cognitively understanding things and then lend it to our body intelligence and embody it somehow for it to work for all of us. So it's just great knowledge.
Yeah, now you tell me. No, I was actually studying BG5 at the time, and I was learning theoretical what that whole dynamic was. But when I saw it in action, it was a moment of epiphany for me in so many ways. So we are, Vanessa and I, we're happy to welcome you back, Banu. So Banu,
You're doing great with my name, Mark. Thank you for the effort as well.
Yeah, I have to keep translating in my head because I want to I want to put the accent on the back syllables instead of the front. So Banu is a intuitive advisor with this powerhouse of the 4323 and 6447. So she's got this really deeply intuitive way of seeing life, and she does it in a very structured way, and she teaches from her experiences, which Banu's experiences are amazing with her background. So she is someone who's so ideally suited to teaching this material. So Banu, I would like to turn it over to you. I have some slides in your slide deck, so just tell me how you want to do it, and we can take a run from there.
Thank you, Mike. Perhaps I do a quick, like a little entry into why I was so enthusiastic about understanding OC16 better and then later teaching it, as it relates personally to me. So after spending 25 years in the corporate world, I decided to leave to follow my passion, which is doing this, teaching BG5 and working with teams and individuals in businesses with this knowledge. And when I found human design, which was 10 years ago, I think, and I started studying it, I thought, okay, this knowledge set is just drawing me in, and I'm so interested in it. But what could I bring personally into this knowledge? What's my value add? You know, anybody could learn anything. And then, of course, the answer to that was the business side of things, because that's where my experience is. That's why I started studying the business side of it, and I'm so glad that I did. And then I first became a consultant, and I was invited to teach. And then I did the advanced certifications, of course. And then I was also invited to teach the OC16, which is the large business or large team application of human design for business for BG5. And it's just a different level of understanding. So it's as if like everything we have learned before, we're building on it, obviously, but you got to forget some of the things that you learn because it's like it's a whole new structure that's emerging. And although it uses the body graph to pinpoint where this multidimensional organizational thing, which it doesn't have a name, is this transauric being has, it's just like this whole new level of looking into organizations, how teams actually function, being able to help leaders with it, and then being able to help individuals who happen to be in such groups as well. And when we say large group, anything above 10 people is where we start applying OC16, so the large business application. So it can go from 10 to 100,000 people, which I've been in such corporate environments, lots of people. It can be applied across. So it's very pulling in and looking at things from a whole different level. And for me, to deepen my practice as a BG5 consultant, you can really deepen how you consult even individuals and teams as well with this knowledge, because there is so much you can bring by understanding what actually happens in these WA environments. It's called the WA. Yeah. So maybe I do a quick intro for those who are just listening to this information for the first time. So where did the term OC16 come from and what it is? So as you see in the middle of this slide is a depiction, one way of showing how this interconnectedness kind of works. But it leads from individuals being connected into pentas, groups of 3 to 5, which then come together to form a bigger organization, which leads into an OC16. So the OC actually stands for the organizing channels. And it's actually how all these pentas, the people and the connections organize themselves in quite a different way when we move into such dynamics. And the 16 was derived from 3 pentas of 5 plus an alpha. Though, as I said, the actual application of the information begins with 9 plus 1. 10 is where we start applying it. So when I was first studying the BG5, and it's something I remember, I used to try to put people into pentas, and the system, you can only put 5. You cannot add a 6th person. And because I didn't know about this information, I would try to bring this in as a picture, add that person as a different color manually, because back then I didn't know that it needs to break into two pentas now. It cannot go into being 6. It needs to, the pentas naturally break. And if you were to observe it in real life, the moment you have a lot of people start forming smaller groups, and even like in day-to-day conversations or anything, you cannot keep a group dynamic with that many people. So it starts breaking into others. So then it will be 3 of 3 plus somebody to lead, which would be our alpha, the leader that can lead. And then when we take that 10 number, of course, it could be applied to any group, right? It could be a football team. It could be a small business that's growing. It's easy to get to 10, right? It's not like this huge organization that we're talking about. It could be applied to nonprofits. And if we're working with individuals, it's very easy for them to get into such groups as well. 10 is not a very big number. And then we got to start applying it after that. So it's just like a chain, individuals into pentas, and then that builds into larger groups. And when people come together for a common cause, which usually with the business perspective, of course, it's the business that's established to make material success, yes, has some KPIs, but needs to really be successful at the bottom line. Or it could be a nonprofit who has other goals. But when people actually come together for a common goal and they're working behind a vision and a mission, and they have shared values, then the vibe of that organization trickles down to all the individuals that are part of it. So you contribute to that being of that transauric form to your organization. And then you pick up a lot of things from how things are done in that. Sometimes we call that like the corporate culture. Yes, the same person can go into different groups, or let's say work for different companies, and they will all have their own vibe and culture. So you kind of groomed into it. You're groomed into it. You fit into it, and it works differently because the energy dynamics work differently. So this is what we study in the OC16. And so it's very interesting in that sense. It's always been for me, and I've still like learning it. The interesting thing about the OC16 is Ra only thought this information once. And he said when he thought it for that one time, he said, I'm just going to teach this information once. And I'm very curious and open to other people coming, some outer authorities, and filtering this knowledge through their consciousness and adding their own value and doing something else with it. So what really excites me is that's what we do in my class, in the classes, the cohorts that we have, because the knowledge set is there. It's very complex. It's not very directive. It's not at the basic level. It's complex information, and everybody brings their knowledge. So we keep on relooking at the information and thinking about how can we apply this to today's individuals in the business world, to today's organizations. We discuss like what happens when we have a startup, because the dynamics work differently from when Ra taught it at that time. So it's always fun to give new meaning to the information, and we are contributing as students in the cohorts to the information as well.
About a question. So it sounds like in your classes, there's a lot of theory, and then there's the application, and you're really embracing Ra's philosophy of like, let's keep evolving this material. So what have you and your students, any interesting discoveries that you've had of this material applied in today's day and age? Now, I think you have a really good insight. When Ra was teaching this was the early 2005, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
That's in today's day and age, that's a lifetime ago. So I'm happy to hear that you're sort of continuing to evolve it and grow it while keeping the core of it. So interesting insights. Anything you want to share with us that you've discovered with you and your students?
Well, there's a lot. We have so many discussions, and usually my students I encourage them, and they also like bringing real life scenarios. So they're all working on their projects and they're involved with certain real teams that they're applying this information to. And then they will bring real life scenarios. And one of the biggest discussions that we have is when Ra taught both the penta theory, I will say, so the BG5 and the OC16, he always talked about how it works in aura. And now the businesses, we don't always work together in the same aura, in the same office. Yeah. And it is also coming through the change of times with the 2027 shift, where we're moving from that era of planning to the era of the individual, where more and more individuals can contribute to a team, but they're not going to be dedicated to work for an organization all the time. So then with that background frequency and where the business is going and more decentralization, so now we're trying to weave in what happens when these teams are working together. We can bring in our OC16 knowledge, we can bring in our Penta knowledge, but when these individuals are working at home 4 days a week, let's say, or sometimes they never meet, so then obviously they're also bringing their personal strengths, gifts into the equation. So then we're trying to weave in everything to see how we could actually do the best class consulting to teams who work remotely and to individuals who work remotely. Because if you just looked at somebody's design, like we were talking about, I'm supposed to work in partnership, I belong to a team, I don't belong to a team. Right now, if you're working on your own, you could still work for a large company maybe, because you will enjoy, which is now possible. So then a consultant who has done advanced studies can nuance their consulting by knowing at what level what happens, even to an individual. So it's like tailoring and modifying and going deep in your consultancy with your clients, even at the individual level, when you start studying this advanced information.
That sounds great. Why don't you give us a little bit of theoretical foundation? I know we have some slides hit it. So let's help people understand like what we're talking about. So begin to ground it into some theory.
Yeah.
So how would it best work for you? Just
if you just go to the next slide, because I have alluded to it just a little bit. So I'll just do so I think this part we discussed, but just to see it, like sometimes people work better visually. So then just talking about these building blocks, individuals moving into pentas, just like the Legos, they are like smaller pieces, a unified group. And then when we start putting all of them together, we have the bigger organization. And usually it's like the fractal geometry. It kind of repeats itself by adding individuals moving into pentas and then those adding together. And once these groups are brought together, a natural hierarchy emerges. So when we study the WA, and so by the way, maybe just to make sure everybody understands the terminology, so WA, WA in capital letters, that's how we write it. When we speak about the WA, it's a group of 10 or more people. But for example, a WA could be a shopping mall. It could be an area where you go to eat, for example. So there are multiple number of people. The energy is there. It's vibing in a certain way. But maybe these people don't have a common goal. They're not brought together by an organization. So then that's the WA. When these people are acting together for a common cause, they're working under certain missions or towards a common vision, or they have shared values, then we talk about OC16. Yeah. So that's the differentiation between, and we're affected by the energy anyhow. Yes, no matter where we are, but it just works differently. Yeah. And then if you go to the next slide, so as we were discussing, these are all very different frequencies. So when we look at an individual's chart individually, we will study their strengths, how their circuitry moves, what are the gifts that they bring, what do they contribute in itself. Yeah. And then the moment that individual starts working with 3 or more people, then we would use the Penta information around what gets pulled out of all these individuals when they belong to teams. So then we can apply this to helping one individual in their business, because they're going to be part of such organizations. And usually what happens is the moment an individual starts contributing to a team, the team vibe kind of manages the individual's energy in a way that the team is served. Yeah, so we always say when we're in pentas, the penta gets out of the individuals what it needs. And it usually treats everybody for material success. It's established for a material success. And this material doesn't have to be profit, because it could be like delivering something common together as well. But it will just pull out certain skills from people, which are the business skills.
Well, let me just can I just give a quick framework? So
Please.
Banu is looking at these different images on the slides here. So if you don't have a visual image, let me just give you a little bit of framework. When we're talking about helping the individual understand their career design, we're looking just at their basic charts, their natal charts. And so that's where we focus our attention. If we're looking at partnership, we have person A and person B, and then there's something that exists in between, which is the relationship design. So that's a very specific chart in and of itself. So the software that we use creates these kind of charts. Now, when we're talking about small teams, pentas, we're looking at a very specific area. So we talked about this a lot in the spring. So the penta zone is from the sacral G throats, or in BG5 terms, energy, resource, identity, communication. So that's the pentazone, that's the small team. And then there's 6 other strengths in the body graph that Bono is going to be talking about through the course of the fall, which is those are the OC16 or the WA channels or strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very specific areas that we look at in these charts to understand where you're designed to fit.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to add that little context.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. And it really helps to understand things. And when we come to the WA frequency, so when we come to OC16 formations, then actually just go back to the other one so I can explain the other. Yes, the one at the very far. Then the frequency changes because there's now hierarchy within the organization. The frequency of this group becomes striving because their pentas are competitive by nature. The moment you're part of a penta, there's that wanting to be materially successful, and pentas like competing with each other. But when you put pentas together under one organization, which goes into our OC16 and WA frequency, it's more striving because a hierarchy is formed, and all the individuals and the pentas need to serve a common mission that needs to be delivered, yeah, or a common goal. So then the frequency becomes different, and the 6 channels that you pointed, we call them the OC16 channels or the main business drivers. But the OC16 frequency, the large group dynamic, takes or uses the whole body graph. So everything in some individual's chart will be contributing to the success of this large group. And the OC16, the 6 are just the heads of these business drivers. And then we have power bases, which perhaps we can show a chart in a couple of slides. And it takes advantage and utilizes all 64 traits that are there. Yeah. So now, what we also do when we study OC16 is, apart from understanding how this OC16 energies are present in somebody's design, do they have one of the channels? Maybe they have some activations. They might have power-based activations. We also start putting the group into the teams and establishing the lines of communication. And by doing so, we can really help this organization take advantage of the group dynamics. So we study in quite a bit of detail around how we establish that foundation penta, which will be our core. And as we are growing our business and we start adding more and more people, then it forms another penta, which will be the expansion penta, which is usually established to take care of the workload. And then as the business is ready to grow more, for more demand, we establish the coordinating penta. And while we're doing this, the people who were there in the beginning, usually who were part of the foundation penta, we move them into the newer pentas. So the ones who are more seasoned in the business, they kind of take managerial roles as we let new blood into the organization to take care of the business, and they're groomed into the company culture so we can all act like a group who's striving for a common goal. And for the alpha, to understand how to establish these pentas, and then to be able to establish the right lines of communication, because the more crowded we are, it gets harder for everyone to understand the message, what needs to be delivered, what needs to happen, and without force, of course, right? That's our main goal in applying BG5 information, is how can we do everything we do in business with ease and flow, taking care of the dynamics that are there in the background. So then we can help alphas understand the lines of communication. Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I have a really simple question. I feel like I'm like 101 right here. First of all, when you hear Banu talking about pentas, just in your mind, translate the word teams. It's very similar to that. So if you're not sort of geeking out on BG5 terminology, penta equals teams. So my question is, lines of communication. I know that sounds really simple, but I don't really understand as far as all these teams. Like, can you just give us a quick overview of what that means in terms of this body
so
work?
So an example could be, let's say the foundational team or the expansion team, they all have their jobs, right? Let's say we have the accounting team, we have the sales team, and we have the marketing team. So we have all these different teams. And then maybe this company wants to grow. So then we want to establish a different task force, for example, to do something. Or the alpha wants to lend a message where these teams should work together in a way for a common cause. So if the alpha knew how to communicate it in a way where they can also utilize certain individuals to lend certain messages and things also starting to materialize, it would really work. So the lines of communication is, you could think of it like we teach our alpha some new languages which they might not be speaking, and how to get support from people in their organization that speak those languages better to land messages that can steer the energy of these teams into material success for the company.
That's brilliant. I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks in groups of any size is once you start reaching some threshold amount of people, communication really breaks down. Like how do we discern information? How do we spread out information in a way that everyone gets, understands, and can utilize? So I can see why this is so important in this body of work.
Yes. So we study all of these. We also do some gap engineering, which is very much different from how we do it in the small group dynamics when we study BG5 information, because the gaps are also, perhaps we could do a session on that where they kind of put focus into things. So as the organization grows, we take advantage of the gaps, while in small groups, we don't want them ideally. We want to try to get rid of them. We kind of work reversely as the group grows, because it gives the opportunity for that team not to be siloed in their own energy and to keep connecting to the bigger organization when we have those gaps. Yeah.
Okay, Banu. This is really exciting material, and we have the whole fall to go through this. So could you take a moment to just kind of envision what do you see our direction through the course of the fall? Like any particular areas you want to study or talk about or educate our listeners on?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for this invitation. I love talking about this information. And when it's in smaller bits, it's easier to understand, I think. So I envision talking about, first of all, the 6 business drivers that we have. So we have management, we have competitiveness, all the 6 business drivers and the OC16 channels and their power bases and what they mean for the organization is something I definitely want to discuss. So we could allocate one like session to each of them to go into a little bit of detail is what I was thinking. And then perhaps in one of them, we can study how we built these smaller teams as the organization grows, just to give a taste of how we actually apply the information is another thing that we could do. And then the other thing I was thinking about is we could do one session where everybody brings in their chart and we study it together to see what happens to you personally when you become part of such bigger groups. So how are you? What are the personal dynamics for the person who's doing that session? Everybody can look at their charts or whoever they're interested in to see what they contribute and what they get from this team dynamic. And I think it would be good because we're building on the information in terms of understanding it.
This
So I
sounds
wanna
exciting.
call
I'm really
out
looking
really
to the fall. Go
I
ahead.
want to
Go
call
ahead.
out quickly to the people that are watching and listening. If you're interested in being one of those people that we look at, comment on this on YouTube. Let us know so we can get in touch with you. If you are listening on a podcast, email the Institute. We'll put it in the show notes, just so that we can start collecting the people that we can look at ahead of time.
Yeah, beautiful. That'd be
Yeah.
lovely. And then we could do case studies as well. The information is so deep, we could just keep on doing sessions on this. But yeah, so that's what I thought of for the beginning, and then we will see how we go. And perhaps there'll be questions as well, things people are interested in. So if we receive such requests or suggestions, we can try to honor those as well.
Yeah, I love how we're bringing this material into like the more everyday and talking about this. OC16 has always, I don't want to use, I'm using this term, it's almost like been a fringe aspect of it, but the way you're talking about, I feel like it really needs to come back down into like everyday life. Because even though we're talking about it in the context of business, you're also highlighting like any team, any gathering, any group has these dynamics at play. So understanding them is really important.
Yeah, yes. I really want to be able to apply it to some. There are my students. Several of them are in contact with some schools, and of course, a class environment is automatically an OC16. Usually, it's above 10 students and a teacher. So some of them are exploring how to apply it to education, and I'm really looking forward to what they find out.
Whoa, fascinating.
Yeah.
Vanessa, any final questions for Bono?
If you could wrap this, like say it very quickly, because this might be a long thing, but I think it would be super interesting for people to know if we applied like just what you talked about today to say a football team or even like a dance company, like a group of people, how could we practically apply that? And I know I ask questions that can sometimes require long answers.
Yeah,
So if you want to
so
save it for another one, that's fine too.
well, very basically, there are dimensions and layers of how the information can be used, obviously. When we work with the individuals within that, let's say, dance club, we said. So if we have the dance organization and then we're working with the individuals, then if they understand their design and what happens to them when they are dancing together, or trying to put like a choreography together, who takes the lead, who contributes to what, and all that. Am I picking energy? Am I being drained into other things? So at the personal level, it definitely will help every team member understand. And then the person who's leading this organization or this group of dancers, so then as the alpha or the leader, how can they better use the energy of these people to make a better choreography, maybe to sell this if they're going to go and sell tickets somewhere. So then we can really help the leader understand their team better and the team dynamics better with some suggestions to make to contribute to the whole team's success at the same time. Yeah. So helping the people inside it, the alpha and how to work, and then the team itself. So 3 layers of what we can do with the information.
Oh, I love that. Great answer. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Thank you. So on behalf of Vanessa and I, Banu, we're looking forward to hanging out with you this fall and diving deep into a new topic for us. Sarah, thank you for joining us today. So we'll be on in 2 weeks. We'll be back on September 23rd, Tuesday. And I look forward to it. Oh, by the way, if you're interested in BG5 cycles class or the certification, I will be teaching starting this week. I am starting on Thursday, September 11th, the cycles class. And if you're interested in studying the certification class, semester 1, that begins next Wednesday, September 17th. So if you're interested in any of those classes, feel free to reach out. If you are a recent graduate of the certification class and you want to go into OC16, check in with Banu. I know she has a new class that started. Is it? No.
Every January, I start a new cohort.
Okay.
So the new beginners can come in January.
Which is perfect timing. So you'll get a good primer through the fall with us, and then you can jump in with her in January.
And
all right, folks.
If you're brand new to BG5 and you haven't started at all yet, there are foundations classes starting very regularly. So if you check out the website, I think it's BG5businessinstitute.com, BG5. We'll link it in the show notes so you can learn all about how to get involved there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Banu, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for
Thank
now.
you. Bye.